Whenever it comes to making a difficult decision, you're just not sure what to do. You only have to ask yourself, does this make us more consumer facing?
Hello, I'm David Kain, and welcome to the Kain Friends podcast, where we ask our guests to share thoughts and ideas on the automotive industry with a focus on helping our viewers improve their business. Our guest today is Kevin Frye, who is a recognized leader in automotive digital and customer experience, and he's currently serving as the head coach of marketing for the Jeff Wyler Automotive Family. With more than 15 years of experience in automotive technology and e-commerce, Kevin has been at the forefront of helping dealerships evolve their online and then store customer journeys. A former U.S. naval aviator with over 200 combat flight hours, he brings a disciplined, data driven approach to leadership and innovation. Kevin, welcome to the show, and thank you very much for coming on today and sharing your wisdom and knowledge.
David, longtime friend, thanks for having me. It's funny as you read through my bio, it makes me realize I need to update that. I'm literally at 2025 years of experience now. The time is flying by, but it's very exciting. I'm thrilled to be with you today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Could you go ahead and update your bio? Tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to be in this role. And I love the head coach of marketing. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, I'll start with how I got here today because I feel like 99% of us in automotive fell into the industry. I know you've got family involved in it, David, but for someone like me in high school, when they had that day, like, hey, what are you going to do one day? I was more thinking flying for the Navy back then. But the way I fell into it was my wife and I in the late 90s, early 2000s had a series of eBay stores where you bring in your stuff and sell your stuff on eBay. And this is when eBay Motors was first starting. Now, I want to tell you, back then, they were like a bull in a china shop, breaking every rule out there, and cars hadn't really been sold online before. So we got involved with that, and us and several others were literally writing the book on how to do this. Because if you remember back then, you had to buy a digital camera, what's the right resolution, how you host photos, etc. And I had no dealership background experience, which looking back, I think was an advantage in entering the digital era. Well, the eBay sales was actually very successful. In fact, we sold over 500 cars in 1 year on eBay. And the dealers in our region were like, first, this is impossible. You can't do that. And I'm telling you, people were buying. I don't know what else to say. And they fought with this, to be very candid, David. They felt that we needed a dealership license. There's all these issues early on with people that didn't understand the internet. And to make a long story short, I represented eBay Motors with the Ohio State Legislature, and we won the day.
Wow.
And a lot of these dealers that were against me then asked if I would help them to sell cars on eBay. So I started a business doing that. And that kept growing because as I went into dealerships, like, gee, can you help me with the website? Can you help me with marketing, things to that nature? And one of my customers was Jeff Wyler. And
Right.
20 years ago, he made an offer I couldn't refuse. He saw the picture of the future and he says, we'd love you to come aboard, be part of our team. We know this is the future. Just tell us what you need, put us in front. And that's where I've been ever since.
Wow.
I can talk about the head coach thing if you'd like to, which is kind of a little bit of a different thing.
Yeah, please do. That would be great.
That was a management culture, or really a culture of the entire company when the Jeff Wyler's son, David Wyler, came on board with his brother-in-law to basically start running the business. And all of us were fired as managers and rehired as head coaches the same day because our culture is that we want to constantly coach our people up to improve and get better.
Wow, I love that, and I think that's a great idea, and being that I'm second generation in the dealership, normally the second generation has all the bad ideas. I'm glad that David had a good
Well,
one,
that's
and
not the case with you, David. I know that for a fact.
I appreciate that. So, if I look at the marketplace that you started in, going back to my college days at Eastern Kentucky University, Cincinnati was always known as a marketplace where they tried things, and just the nature of the marketplace. So, you look at a Midwestern city, and now you all have obviously expanded into other environments, but at the same time you all going to market in a town where test marketing was really known. I think it's
Mhm.
really cool that you and Julie tried that. And I think, let's be fair, Julie is really the ideas behind most everything, all the good ideas to everything you do. But we'll cover that a little bit more later. But let's talk about your operational norms. So if I'm a
Mhm.
guest and here in Louisville's where I live, I see the Jeff Wyler flag, waving over dealerships. Is there consistency across the spectrum through your all's rooftops, or is the Jeff
Yeah.
Wyler? How do you achieve that? Because that's obviously the tip of the spear.
So it didn't start that way. We were the traditional, every dealership has a king that runs the kingdom, right? And but to be successful today, ourselves and a lot of large groups, we're centralized in a lot of the ways that we operate. So, for example, all of our dealerships are intentionally within a 2 hour radius. We literally have drivers that move deals and deal jackets every day to our central accounting office where we house HR, IT, marketing, you name it, trying to leverage economies of scale. So that's a big part of the centralization part. But the other part was becoming consistent in the customer experiences you're talking about. Because when I started, David, it was all over the board. I literally think we had 4 or 5 CRM tools. I had people that were Foursquare in deals, people doing Ziegler deals. They were all being written up differently. And so training is now a tremendous part of our culture that we standardize the customer experience. So that's with the salespeople, that's with the websites, etc. The non-negotiables, trust. We've been in business for 5 decades. We opened in 1973. Our motto right now is generations of trust. It's key that we build and maintain trust with our consumers. The other goals, which are ongoing, are to be as consumer facing as possible and to try and be as frictionless as possible in buying a car.
Mhm.
We by far have not perfected that yet, but those are the lofty goals we're always reaching for.
Yeah, and I think you've got immediate feedback on a daily basis. Obviously, you pay attention to the reviews and such. How has that immediacy of review by your guests changed the dynamics to where you all can go into the kings of the kingdoms and emphasize, this is what the guest expects.
Yes. First, this ties back to a discussion we had this morning in our meeting. And that is that oftentimes, and I don't mean this as an insult or a slight, but our head coaches or general managers automatically assume that customers want to be marketed to the way they like to be marketed to. They want to buy a car the way they like to buy a car. And that trend moves quickly, especially with the younger generations. So, by
Yes.
reading the reviews, that's one key area. We also do an annual user experience study where we'll bring in 10 to 15 people of all different backgrounds and ages into our studio. And believe it or not, David, through the year, we kind of compile tough questions like, do they really like interacting with AI? And
Mhm.
then we bring them in a studio. We ask them these series of questions while filming them. And we'll also literally get them to go live on our websites and see what they like about the experience, they don't like, etc. That's the feedback that we believe works the best to try and keep us at the leading edge of the consumer experience and to make sure that we're keeping them happy and satisfied.
Yeah, I think that's great. I remember years ago, with some of my early clients, they would say, "Well, what how do we know what the guest wants?" I said, "Well, you've got that waiting room back there. Go grab somebody, sit them in your chair, give them the mouse, and let 'em navigate your website. I think you'll find out in just a moment whether or not it's designed the way they want it to be." So it is interesting, and that feedback loop, seems to be pretty critical to your all's ongoing development, and when you look at things that you guys have been successful at, and I close enough in your marketplace to where I pay attention to what you guys are doing, and you can't duck the headlines. You're always somewhere. Someone's got a microphone in your face saying, "What do you think, Kevin?" So, talk about some of the successes that you're most proud of over the years.
Oh, there would be several. If I were to go many years back, if you recall video search engine optimization, uh,
Oh,
don't take me wrong. I mean, back in the day, it was pretty easy to gain SEO. And with video SEO, at one point, we were dominating all of page one and most of page two. And I remember the other dealer principals in town calling Jeff Wyler complaining. I took a lot of pride in that. One of the other key ones that really paid off well is we were early players with digital retailing, and we were first in the Midwest to introduce it. And this is back, David, when it was ugly, it was linear. You had to go step by step in the order. But where that paid off was COVID, because dealers were struggling. What are we going to do? How are we going to sell cars during COVID? And we were miles ahead at that point with an established process, which, by the way, people embracing that exploded during COVID. That, hey, we can do most of this online, then we can handle online deliveries, etc. Uh, I think one of the other ones I would think about is recently in the last couple of years, we've established a customer data platform, a CDP,
yeah.
and we're working to this day. And how do we leverage that first party data to be provide a more personalized shopping experience, more consumer facing experience, and it's also more efficient marketing wise for us. So those are some of the highlights I would point at during that my career.
That's really great. And I love science fiction movies, and I love the movie Minority Report where Tom Cruise is walking into the mall and they do the retinal scan and they say, "Welcome back." With the advent of AI, we are starting to see, how that's going to change. If you were put on your prognostication cap, what do you really think the impact of AI will be, both from your all's internal usage standpoint and how it's gonna affect your consumer, experience?
To me, it's economics 101. And it's always the drive for efficiency. And so we're looking everywhere we can, as well as a lot of other dealers. How can we be more efficient in how we operate, as well as how we sell online? And this is a very exciting time because we have so much data
Yeah,
that we've never really had the technology to leverage it. The good news is, and this is even going back a couple of years back, doing our UX studies, consumers are embracing AI. And I don't know what it is sometimes. And I talk about this a lot with dealers. It's like we have this assumption that our consumers are not as bright as they really are.
yeah,
And listen, when they call Chase Bank or American Express or they're chatting, they know they're interacting with AI. Our question was, is that good with you? Do you enjoy that? And consistently the answer has been, if the information they give me is correct and quick, then we're thrilled. So we're really working hard to leverage that AI into our consumer experience today. And I'm here to tell you, and I'm sure you've seen it, David, the solutions are coming out so quickly. It's all we can do to
yes.
keep up with what's out there.
Yeah, it's so true. And when you talk about solutions, you've done a lot of vetting for the industry of technology partnerships, and I can't imagine on the side of the road a lot of the people that came to you and they said this is the greatest thing that's ever happened in automotive retail. And look, you're a lot like my dad. My dad used to always say, listen to every pitch. You never know who's going to have a really great idea that they just need somebody to partner with. So let's talk about what partnering with you all is like. And are there any partnerships that you'd like to kind of amplify and say, hey, these guys, at least in today's environment, are a good one to work with?
So let me share a story because we take partnership here very seriously. And I remember when we transitioned to dealer.com websites. And through that process, I said, I would love to go up to their headquarters in Burlington, of Vermont, meet with their team. And their response was, we don't typically do that, but we'll set up a visit for you. And they sent over an itinerary. And, I was literally scheduled from like 8:30 in the morning till 5 o'clock of all these presentations. And David, my response was, well, where am I? And they're like, well, what do you mean? And I said, I'm coming up to give back. It's a partnership. It's a two-way street. And their answer was, we've never had anybody do that before. And so I went up and I literally spent a couple hours of not only the like issues we needed to resolve, but our vision of where we wanted to go. And that turned into an annual, semi-annual trip of going back and forth and partnering with them. And I want to speak on behalf of the vendors out there because David, as well as I, especially with your B20 group, for a lot of dealers, the idea of partnership is pillow talk. It's a one-way relationship where I want from the vendor, but what am I giving back as the dealer? I believe that's what makes us different. We truly, when we partner up with you as a vendor, we want to be giving you direct feedback, meeting with you, and giving you vision on how to improve the product. So we have a very strong relationship with Cox Automotive. I can tell you right now, we're in the process of transitioning our tech stack with Techion for CRM, DMS, and all of that exciting stuff. So there's always a lot going on. We have a lot of fantastic partners out
That's really cool, and I do appreciate that description because you're right. Everybody, wants to say, "We want from you," but if you're not willing to reciprocate, you really only are getting partial benefit from that relationship. So I'm glad to hear that. Speaking of, you and I have been involved in this digital selling for years and years. And it is interesting. When I did read your biography, I was like, that just seems like he's been here forever. So certainly I appreciate that update. But interesting enough, when you look at the metrics, have the metrics changed? Because you and I are both friends with a lot of people in the industry, and we love. Let's just section it off to digital selling. So engagement is critical, appointment is critical, showing up is critical, right? It's great to get them to a point, but they got to get there, and then selling them when they get there. Have those metrics shifted? Because years ago, a lot of the vendors made a play and they go, well, we don't even think you should count leads anymore. And I was like, well, that's how we sell cars. So, maybe we better continue to count the important things. What do you think?
there. So there's been some transition there. My undergraduate degree was aerospace engineering. So I can geek it out with the best when you get into data and the KPIs. But David, I would say you probably learned this before me. Uh, Keep it simple, stupid certainly applies.
Yes.
And there came a point when I realized I need to hold myself and my team accountable to the most important thing to the dealerships we serve, which are people in the showroom. So believe it or not, and I can look out my glass right now in our meeting area. We got some big monitors with KPIs rotating. The two primary KPIs we track every day are total website traffic and total showroom visits. So let's think
Yeah.
about all of my marketing efforts ultimately should drive them to the virtual dealership, which is our website. Am I being successful? Am I bringing more people in the virtual dealership? And then number two is the experience in my virtual dealership going to transition into showroom visits? And that's going to be two elements. So the first is the traditional conversion, right? Which could be phone calls and forms. And then the second are the people that show up without directly converting. And that's what I want to chat about for a second because this has changed significantly. So, David, let's go back in time. We're both a little bit older out there. And if I'm to go 10 plus, 15 plus years ago, if I was converting forms at 2.5 to 3%, I was doing exceptional.
Oh, yeah.
And then on phone calls, if I put another 8 to 12, I was killing it. Let's put the two top numbers together, 12 plus 3, a 15% conversion. And I could strut around Digital Dealer or any other show, and people say, man, that guy knows what he's doing. He's got great conversion. Let's look at today. Informed conversion, pretty much at best, is less than 1%. So that's about a third of the glory days. And phone calls have dropped too, not as much. But why? And the reality is that the modern day consumer wants to complete as much of that process online while avoiding us because they don't want to be aggravated by calls or emails, whatever the case may be. Some of that you're seeing now is transitioning to AI. That's the latest and greatest large language models. Fun to believe the latest Cox Automotive study, about 19% of people are making a decision based on that. But this is to me where it's changed. It's based upon that website experience. That has been your battleground for the last 25 years where you're going to win the decision for yes as to whether or not they come in your dealership. So it comes down to engagement.
Yeah.
And here's something that is timeless. This goes back to probably when Henry Ford opened his first dealership. There are three primary questions, timeless questions of every car buyer. How much per month? How much for my trade? And can you get me financed? Those will be your three primary conversion tools. I don't care what you say at any website out there. And it's also the reason why digital retailing works well. But it comes down to the measurement. I would agree that today it's not about total lead count. Because if even in the glory days, if 15 of every 100 directly converted, why do we ignore the other 85? What are they doing? So
Yeah.
we led the way with engagement modeling, which is an ongoing thing that if I'm putting people on the site, we closely monitor what's happening with that traffic. Are they looking at photos? Are they getting on the DR tool and penciling deals? Whatever the case may be. That to me is the difference in where KPIs have transitioned. So if I'm to give you a peek behind the curtains at Jeff Wyler, we are more focused on the cost to put someone on our website and how well they engage versus other channels. And we're constantly mixing up that engagement channel to see if we're successful. Does that make sense?
Complete sense. And I love the depth of the explanation. It makes all the difference. So you and I, we walk around the events and people will come up to us and ask us questions. What I'd like you to do is to think about a younger Jeff coming into the industry. Is there any advice you wish you would have known or received that you'd like to throw out to the audience today?
Oh, I'm sure there's lots of it. The keep it simple part on the KPIs would be huge to me. But I'll give you some lessons I've learned even prior to automotive. When I was a young naval officer, my squadron, just by chance, happened to be the first squadron that went over to Kuwait when Saddam Hussein started all of his shenanigans. And I remember my commanding officer called me into his office and he says, I want you to go to Bahrain, which is like a large island off the coast of Kuwait. And I want you to set up a forward staging base. I need to make sure you have fuel set up for the aircraft. We need to have a place to put our ordnance, bombs, missiles, things of that nature. I'm sitting there like, yeah, I'm 23, 24 years old thinking, how in the world am I going to do all this? This is absolutely crazy. And I made the mistake of telling my commanding officer of asking, how am I going to do this? Asking him questions. David, I got lit up for the next 10 minutes that you are a United States naval officer. You are trained to take initiative. You are trained to lead and to make it happen. It's not for you to ask how, it's to get it done. So that would be one of the first key lessons I learned in life and recommend an audit. Take initiative. It's so big that you take initiative. That's the only way you're going to stay ahead of the industry. Otherwise, you're just going to be set back letting things happen to you. The other thing is, how would I say it? They're trying to build a culture of holding people accountable while constantly uplifting and encouraging them. Unfortunately, in automotive, I felt like, David, when I came into it, I felt like the natural culture was a daily beatdown. Even if you're a hero at day 30, 31, you're the zero in day one, right?
Yes.
And people would look at me cross-eyed when I'd give them a compliment. What, you're doing a great job working these leads. Oh my God, I haven't heard good news in 10 years. So I learned that it's really important to uplift and encourage people. All right. Anytime you present a problem, you better have a couple solutions.
Yeah.
All right. It doesn't help a busy dealer principal. I can come in here and present problems all day long. They don't care. What are your solutions? And the final one might throw you for a loop, David. And that is, if you're asking for a pay raise, you've done something wrong. And let me back up on this. And this is part of the Jeff Wyler culture, by the way. Believe it or not, if you're not being recruited at Jeff Wyler, they're not happy. They're like, why in the world do we have you working for us if nobody else would have them working for you, right?
Yeah.
And so that comes down to, if you're not doing your job exceptionally well enough to catch your superior's attention that they want to pay you more, then I would say you're doing something wrong. And so you need to work hard, take initiative, stand out. So you're actually being recruited and approached by your dealer principal that, you know what, you're the cat's meow and we want to compensate you a little bit more, whatever the case may be.
God, I love that. And
I'm
certainly,
giving you more than you probably want.
no, that's great. Having five brothers and three sisters in my family, we were always trying to one up each other and get the attention of our dad. So I understand what that is like. I also recognize that my son, who's an aerospace engineering graduate from CE Boulder, he's very analytical like you are, and it's a lot of fun to be able. But I think when you look at how your life is shaped and the lives that you're shaping, take just a moment if you could and think about what we've talked about today. Is there anything that you want to leave our audience with that you think here in the middle of 2026 would be beneficial to them?
I'm going to give them the simplest and I believe the greatest advice that's going to make them successful. And you've probably heard me preach about this before, David, whenever I speak. Whenever it comes to making a difficult decision, you're just not sure what to do, which vendor to choose, with solution, strategy, whatever the case may be. You only have to ask yourself one simple question. Does this make us more consumer facing? Because I'm here to guarantee you this. If the answer is yes, you're pretty much going to win every single time. If the answer is no, because it's some little gimmick to trick someone in getting in the dealership, or the case may be, it's not going to work. So that is the simple axiom that I have followed for 25 years doing this. And I promise you it'll work for you as well.
No, I love that. So no WKRP throwing the frozen turkeys out of the helicopters.
On a side note, somebody finally bought those call sign or those station letters in Cincinnati. There is now a WKRP in Cincinnati, if you're old enough to remember that.
I love that. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for your generosity, and I think I speak for everybody in the audience. Thanks for your service to our country. We're really appreciative for your continued efforts to really guide us. We're all envious. We wish we could have flown in those jets without the repercussions that you had to face with every hour that you flew. But certainly, you mean a lot to me personally, and taking the time to be with us today here on the Kain Friends podcast means a lot. So we'll go ahead and wrap up now. And I just want to say thank you very much to our audience for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode of Kain Friends. Bye now.